We got this Grizzly G0458 drum sander, 18-inch. It's open arm, so you're supposed to be able to sand 36-inch wide material in it by running it through twice. Sitting there on the pallet. I'll go ahead and start putting that together. It doesn't have wheels for it, so I might have to make something for it to roll around on because it's definitely too heavy to manhandle. Well, here's the parts list, or the owner's manual. It's a G0458 18-inch open end drum sander, and I'm going through it to put the stand together, and I just ignored all of the crap in the front because that's just safety stuff. It says needed for setup, safety glasses, 2 assistants, wrench 13mm and wrench 14mm, hex wrench 4mm, Phillips head screwdriver, wood blocks, 3 2x4s, and wood shims as needed. Like this are the tools that are pretty much needed here. There's actually 3 different sizes of hex wrench in there, and then this is kind of a little combination wrench. And that says it's a 12 on one end and a 8 on the other, so I guess those aren't the right ones. Anyhow, here's the legs. They were wrapped in this tissue paper and in plastic. They're in good shape. And well, here's the packing list, inventory here. We've got the dust bag up here and the dust outlet and hook up crank for the handle. There's a screw to hold the crank on. And here's the assembly screws. Okay, well, here's the instructions on how to assemble it, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'll go ahead and assemble this stand. On one side, put the nut on. Okay, that's all together. I'll need to square it up. I'm just going to tighten these bolts up just a little bit. Probably not going to be any better than that. Yep, that's it right there. Okay, turn it up right and check the top of it. That's it. It's a 32nd of an inch. So there's the stand. Okay, so what they want you to do then is to go ahead and tip the sander over on its side and then mount the stand on it, and then tip the sander upright after you mount the stand on it. So I'll have to get some help to do that. I'll do that tomorrow. We got the stand together anyway. That's a start. Well, I initially thought the holes in the bottom of that stand were 1/2 inch. They're holes for casters. I initially thought they were 1/2 inch, but after I measured them, you can see they're 3/8. So my initial plan to drill 3/8 inch holes in here kind of fell through, but we adapted and we drilled the holes through there for 5/16 instead, which will give enough room to be able to adjust that stand inside of here before we bolt it down. Anyway, my plan was to drill that out for 5/16 and then countersink it and on the back side here, on the bottom side, and then get some flathead machine screws put in there and weld them in. Well, nobody in town had flathead 5/16 machine screws, a 1/4 inch, but no 5/16. So I got some all thread and I cut it off into 1 inch lengths, and I went ahead and countersunk this, and I'll go ahead and weld those in there. Well, I got 4 pieces of 5/16 what is it, 5/16 all thread, cut them into 1 inch lengths. I'll go ahead and hold them in there square from the bottom, or from the top side, and weld them in from the bottom, and we should be able to put the casters on. I just used one of these angle magnets to hold the stud up in there. I just set it on there like that, and then put the magnet on the underside with just enough of the stud sticking up through there to get the bite with the weld on it. and I just welded in, filled in the countersink and into the stud. And I'll do that on the rest of them, the next 4 of them. Because the angle bracket is wider than 4 inches this way, I have to kind of hang that over the side of this table to get it in there, but it worked out okay. Looks like it's going to hold up fine. Well, I got those studs welded in there and did a test fit on it. Everything looks like it's going to work out just fine. So that's going to work. I'll take that stand back off there and flop that thing over and weld those casters on there. The casters are all welded on. So they show to hold up pretty good. I run a full bead across the back side of the caster and on the inside, and then the outside edge here I just run a partial bead there just to kind of make sure that edge doesn't flip up on me. Now I turned the welder down a little bit. I turned it down to the lower range, which is what, 90. Left my wire speed and my heat selector the same, and got a nice little bead there for that thinner metal. Anyway, those are all welded on. Now I'll clean that up with some paint thinner and squirt some Exo Rust on it, and then we'll bolt that stand down to it. I've pretty much got my stand all put together. I got the bottom, the roll around, all welded up, the caster wheels put on it, and then I went and got a piece of 5/8 inch plywood and cut out and fit in here for a shelf. And I had to relieve around the angles around it here a little bit for the bolts to go down in here. I've got those studs welded in 5/16. I went and cut some rubber washers put in there on the bottom for vibration control. This is some silicone rubber I got years ago for baffling for an aircraft engine, and it wasn't the stuff that I needed, so I never did use it, but I use it for gaskets. Anyway, I made rubber washers here for that. I put one on the underneath the flanges on this stand, and I'll put one on top of the flanges on the stand. Then got a 5/8 fender washer that goes on top of that, and then a fiber lock nut. That way I don't need a lock washer on there, don't have to worry about those coming loose. It's a self-locking nut. So we'll get those tightened up, finish putting that together, and then we'll put the sander on it. I got the cart down off the table on the floor and all bolted down, ready to go. And it rolls around pretty good. Damn thing's damn near heavier than the sander by itself. So, you know, this is a heavy-duty stand, but then that little cart, that thing is really heavy. Probably weighs about 40 pounds. So, anyway, that works real nice. So we'll get that sander put up on there and get her going. Well, I was going to get my son to help pick this up and put it on the stand, but it's fairly heavy for 2 of us even to pick it up. Got the chain hoist there. I get it up a little bit higher. Alright, well, let's see if I can figure out a way to mount it. See how that mounts on there now. But anyway, that was pretty much painless. Get it on there. Well, the sander's all mounted up to the stand. That wasn't too bad. There's only 4 bolts to hold that thing down, but it seems to hold okay. The next thing to do after that was to put the hand crank on. Okay, the hand crank mounts onto the shaft there, and it just slides onto the shaft. There's a pin through the shaft and some slots in the crank handle that it aligns with, and then that helps it turn, or makes it engage the shaft. And then the instructions were to put this screw in. They supplied a hex socket head screw, but there was a little teeny washer on it. Well, the washer goes right through the hole. It's smaller than the diameter of the shaft, so it goes right through there, and it wouldn't have held that on at all. Luckily, I bought a 1/4 inch washer the other day for working on to have for a spare when I was missing a bolt. So I put that underneath the phosphated washer, the black washer that came with this screw, and put it on there, and so it mounts on tight. So it works. Mounted on the stand. Those little wheels would work good on a concrete floor. They're a little bit rough here on the rough wooden floor, but it slides around pretty good, so no problem with that. That works pretty nice. So then the other thing that we had to mount on after we got it up here was the dust collecting system, and that's about as phony as a piece of crap as you can imagine. It's a plastic outlet there, and then this little plastic connector that fits on that. It's a square connector, and this second piece goes on here if you want to mount a dust collector to it. I think it must have its own blower in it because it has a bag that you can mount on here. But this was kind of tough mounting on here, but it's just a cheap plastic piece of crap, and it fits on there, and then you tighten this screw up, and that holds on there tight. And then if you want a dust collector, this piece here mounts on there, and that's got an Allen screw in there too to clamp it. It also comes with its own bag, and this is a little clamp here for that. So I think that goes on there. First, oh, it's got a nice little elastic on the inlet end of it. Kind of a pain getting that on there. I guess if I turn that to where the seam is on the elastic, it might make it easier, but no, that doesn't make it any easier. This adapter here, which goes on there and clamps on, and it's got sized for a 2.5 inch hose here, a 4 inch hose here. Problem with this is that just the weight of a 4 inch hose just pulls everything right off of there. So that's kind of, like I said, kind of a phony thing. It just you got to support the hose somehow. I took this and turned it down like this so it wasn't pulling on it, but it just pulls it right apart. We got it running already, and tried a piece of wood on it, and it works fine. Here's the circuit breaker, those goddamn cheap circuit breakers. It's the on-off switch, And this is the control for the belt speed. And when you get it, when you first start it up, you think it might be broken because the belt doesn't move. But you adjust the speed control. As soon as you adjust that, it starts moving. You're supposed to adjust the speed control when the machine is running, not when it's stopped. And turn it down. Clockwise to turn it down, and counterclockwise to speed it up. Piece of scrap wood that's been run through a couple of times. The first time it was hardly adjusted, but you can see the saw marks on there and the oxidation, and there's where it's been sanded. We'll run it through a couple more times. So that's not as smooth and polished of a surface as what you'd get through the joiner or the planer, but there's no tear out in these knots. Using the planer or the joiner, you get a brighter, slicker surface from the burnishing from the cuts, but the sander, you don't get any tear out or anything around these knots or this figured wood. So it's not a perfectly smooth flat surface. It's got some little humps and bumps and stuff in it, but that's not too bad. The dust collection on here with this bag on is marginal. It must be picking up some dust, but there's a lot more dust coming out of it with this on than there was with the dust collector hooked up to it. So definitely recommend the dust collector hooked up to it. This dust like this was already on there. That was from the first time passes that we made through the first bit. But this belt down here was completely clean before, and it got a little bit more dust. It's still not too bad. It still picks up quite a bit of the dust, but you get more of it on there with the bag than you do with the dust collector. Yeah, my belt, everything's supposed to be adjusted from the factory. Of course, you never depend on any of that, but my belt is going to need a little bit of adjustment for the tracking. It's a little bit more on this right side than it is on the left side, and it's angled just a little bit, so we're going to need a little bit of adjustment on that. But otherwise, that's it. It's all together, all working, works pretty good. Pretty happy with it. We'll be using it for some things, I'm sure. And it rolls around. It's a little tippy here because the floor is not perfectly level, but get it over where it's on even boards and stuff here, and it's pretty good. At least it moves around. This thing's too damn heavy to move around without something on it, and that cart is going to be a lot nicer than just putting casters in the bottom of this stand. I think with this much weight on it, it'll last a lot longer. Well, now I've put everything away, and well, I'm going to adjust this table tracking. But otherwise, it's all together and all good to go. That's the Grizzly G0458 18-inch open-sided drum sander.